that we kind of have to think that we're not the old time companies that everybody's going to get a 25-year pin anymore, that it's going to be more along the lines of maybe they'll be here 2 or 3 years. And then how can we help them advance their careers going forward so that when they leave T-Square, they've had a great experience, they've felt supported, they've enjoyed their time here.
Hello, professional property managers. Welcome to the Triple Win podcast. We have Kellie Tollifson with us today. And if you aren't familiar with Kellie, she's the co-owner and managing broker at T-Square Properties. She's been in this business for 26 years and counting. And you know, she's definitely at that stage where she's giving a lot back to the industry as well. She was NARPM's president in 2020. And holy cow, nobody knew what Kellie was signing up for when she was elected in 2019 to be the 2020 president, the pandemic president, as she likes to say. But I know how grateful Second Nature is and how so many other people were as members of NARPM, that Kellie's leadership was there and so strong through such an interesting year with a lot of twists and turns. And just a real sincere commitment to provide great value to the membership. And that's something she did with a lot of heart, with a lot of effort, with a lot of help. I know she'd be quick to recognize others' participation in that, as humble as she is. But I just wanted to recognize her for everything you've done in your business and everything you've done in the industry. And we're so excited to finally have you as a guest on the podcast today, Kellie. It's great to be with you.
Well, thank you, Andrew. That's quite an introduction. It's my privilege and honor to be here sharing this time with you. And like you said, yeah, nobody expected what happened in 2020, certainly not me. But I think, you know, like you said, with the help of a lot of other people, we made it a great year. And, you know, hopefully everyone experienced that either with NARPM or in their businesses as far as making new changes.
That's right. If people are listening to this podcast, it means they're still standing and they're still trying to get better. So
they're trying to elevate that vision, right?
That is right. That's right. Well, Kellie, we're gonna get right into it. We're gonna dive right in and get straight to it. We're gonna cover a lot of exciting ground today. I'll tease the audience here with a little bit of what we're gonna cover. We're gonna talk a little bit about HOA, which isn't something we've talked a lot about on this podcast up to this point. We're going to touch on security deposits. We're going to touch on a hot topic right now, which is labor shortage and just the talent environment that we're all in right now. And also some of the things that T-Square does from a cultural standpoint, and an attitudinal standpoint, leading people that I think people will get a lot of value from. And then we're going to talk a little bit about your perspective of how the industry is moving from a service industry to something else. They got to listen to the very end to catch the end of that. But that's how we get people to listen to the end, Kellie, is you tease them at the end. So let's dive in and start with HOA. Can you tell us a little bit, Kellie, about, 26 years ago, is that when you started HOA, or was it at some point after managing long-term rentals? Like, how did this get started?
So basically, so we did start, doing the long-term single-family rentals of the houses, and then it got into a little bit of multifamily, so on. And then one day I got a call from a fourplex in Seattle that said, "Hey, do you manage associations?" And I thought, well, it's only 4 units. Of course I could do that. And this was quite a long time ago. Fast forward. We started doing that. We got a couple more associations, and we had hired a gal on a temporary basis who's now been with us for 13 years, who really gravitated to how HOAs and community associations are managed. And it really took off. She loved it. She was thriving in it. And Teresa has really taken it with, the people that we brought along and made it her own. And we say she's built an empire. And today we manage 103 community associations. And I guess we probably started really doing it, though, Andrew, about 15 years ago. And it has really become a great source of security after last year when, February of 2020 hit, March, April, and we didn't know what was going to happen with all of our rental management fee income. Knowing that we had the association department, we manage all of those bank accounts. Those people were still paying dues. Most of them were probably just similar to the residential rentals in that there wasn't a lot of delinquencies, but we were still getting our fees. So it was a really nice complement, and when everything started to kind of unravel with the residential rentals and not knowing, what was going to happen, I could sleep at night knowing that the security of the revenue we were producing would get us through, could be a bridge if we needed it. Thankfully, we didn't need it because our rentals and our tenants were fabulous in paying their rent, and we didn't get hit super hard with a lot of delinquencies. So in that regard, it's been a great compliment. In the other sense, while it's a good side-by-side business, they are two completely different animals. I tell people, if you're a sports fan, if you think of it differently, so to me, residential rentals is baseball. I'm really familiar with it. I get it. My kids played it. I played it. I love it. And then HOA management is like cricket, where you both have a bat, you have some bases, you have a ball, you hit it, and you run around some way, but it's totally different sports. So not everybody that can manage residential rentals can manage HOAs, and vice versa. It does take a different breed of cat to do the HOA management. So it's been a great business for us, though.
And so it sounds like, hey, you saw this adjacent business opportunity and you found a person who's developed as a leader in your organization. And, it sounds like a long tenured person who really owns the operations and really running that smooth. You've got your all-star cricket player in addition to your all-star baseball players. You found the right person who's really running that for you. Are there, could you describe a little bit of, if somebody was interested in looking at the HOA business, you covered some of the reasons why they might be attracted to look at that. Can you cover, what were one or two of the challenges as it was getting, so like what were a couple of the key differences in the game, that you noticed?
The key difference is the mindset of your resident. So you have a homeowner versus a tenant. And the mindset is very different because the homeowner has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they just have a different mindset. While still maybe demanding, it's a longer term investment mindset in their minds. The other thing, the association management comes with a board of directors, and that will, while you have your investor on the residential side, that person stays the same most 100% of the time. The board of directors rotates and can change. So when you're thinking about taking on an association and you have a great board that you're working with to be hired on, keep in mind the future board may not be like that. So take a look at what the property is actually like and what challenges you may face with that property. For example, if it's a 45-year-old property, or maybe the ones that were built in the late 80s, early 90s, all of them have had reclads. So we know that is something that will come with that property. So the people come and go. So two things: the homeowners have a different attitude, bigger investment, the boards change, and I would say that's three things: focus on the property itself. Not so much the people. We'll have difficult boards or someone difficult on the board, but that person will change eventually, or perhaps other people will come on the board and balance out that person, and vice versa. You may have a great person, and then they change and move out of the community and so on. So would say mostly focus on the property if you can, rather than the people, would be a key factor. And join CAI if you're going to go get some research, get some education. CAI is what NARPM would be to us residential managers. It is CAI is what to the association managers.
Excellent. I love it. Here's some differences and a great resource. Yeah, thanks for kicking off with that. And I'd like to segue, from there. You talked about one of the main reasons to get into HOA was it diversified your revenue streams, right? It diversifies and strengthens your business in a way, as long as it's a strong piece kind of on its own, which it sounds like it is. Another thing we wanted to talk about was, how is T-Square focusing on creating revenue that doesn't fall on the investor, and why are you focused on that?
Well, first of all, one of the focuses, the reasons why we focus on that is there's so many things that aren't related necessarily to the fees we charge as a manager, as a third-party manager, but property taxes are going up. Deferred maintenance costs are going up. All of those costs to be an investor, it's almost like trying to, especially in places like Seattle, Portland, and the two coastal city areas, California, it's like threading the eye of a needle to get successful management. So we just think there's a lot on the investor at this point. So what are some of the other things we can do? We, started Second Nature's RBP, which has been a great success. And we thank you guys for sticking with us. It wasn't something we just jumped into, and we were going to do it right before the pandemic. And your team has been great in holding our hands and saying it's going to be okay, patting us on the heads and say, you can do this. And so we have, and it's been successful. So the RBP is one, and we put that to the tenant, and they get a value for it. We offer not just the traditional things, but we offer some discounted fees for them throughout their tenancy, and some other, like a rekey or a lockout is a free one-time kind of stuff. So there's some real value there for them, in addition to all the other stuff, but there's some hardcore dollar compensation, if you will, for them. One of the other things that we've been looking at, I haven't quite found a good opportunity, is the security deposits. I don't think in the single family world, I know we're not as competitive in the security deposits as we are in the multifamily. So we have, a 2,700 square foot home that rents for, let's say, $3,000. And the security deposit is going to be close to that. While you can't get that size of a property in a multifamily, you can get into a property a lot less expensively with the security deposits being spread out over a 200 unit complex. They have a lot of room for that. And so we've been looking into, how do we make it more affordable? It's not necessarily a revenue stream, but it's more of a way to reduce the risk, use that as a sales pitch, part of our sales presentation to an owner, or our service presentation to an owner. We can offer more competitive security deposits, so your tenant may stay longer and make it more affordable to move in. So therefore they may move in faster because they don't have to wait to accumulate the money for the security deposit. So I think that's something that we need to be looking at as an industry, of how we can do that differently in the single family, small multifamily world. I think the days of the really huge security deposits may be fading. So
you just start to do the math, right? And it's like, you've got $3,000 of rent, another $3,000 deposit, right? You've got the moving costs and application fees, everything else starting to add up. And you may have somebody with a great credit score, you may have somebody with a great income, like they're going to be able to qualify, rent, be a great resident, and they just don't happen to have $8,000 of cash,
sitting around
in the bank. And it's interesting, because what we see with security deposit alternatives, we've been talking to multiple providers in this space, and it's become an increasingly competitive space in multifamily.
So I think
a lot of people are paying attention to it, because there's a lot of people who have invested a lot of money to get the word out about their companies in that space. And what we've seen is, in the past, multifamily attracts a lot of these vendors and prop tech and investment. And the reason is because large communities, you've got this volume and everything else and that people can bring in, whereas the single family market is a much more fractured market.
It's fragmented.
It's much more fragmented. And so, they build it, and then the challenge they see when they think, oh, I've got to come over to single family, right, to get this segment of the market after they've done that, is they've built it all on this architecture, right, that's built for large multifamily communities.
Cohesive, yeah.
And the profit models and everything else, like there's just different damages.
I think too I don't know it. I haven't, probably you guys have researched it way more than I have probably, but I'm thinking has to be something with the ownership, right? That it's the fragmented ownership of each property. It's not so much that it would be with T-square properties, but it's with the ownership of the home. And that's where the fragmentation comes. If there could be a model that said, okay, for T-square or whatever company, we're going to offer you this package for all of your tenants, somehow making that, I don't know, like an umbrella security deposit type package without the management company becoming an insurance broker or insurance agent, because that's not legal. You have to have a license, at least in the state of Washington, to sell insurance. So you have to be really careful walking that line, that fine line, and getting into it.
It's hopefully we got something for you in 2022, Kelly. We'll we'll keep you updated. But there's insurance, surety bonds, which is similar, and then technology solutions like a credit card authorization. There's a few different approaches, and it's going to be interesting to see what shakes out for SFR. Let's take a pivot from that, and something I know that's on a lot of people's mind is some people are calling it a labor shortage. I saw a stat. It's called like the Great Resignation. I may get my number wrong here, and probably Carol will correct this in the show notes or something like that. But I believe I saw like 4 million people left their job in the month of April. I believe it was. And it's something that's happening at really every talent level. From entry-level employees to top-tier talent. There is a lot of activity and a lot of movement, going on. And it can also be challenging to find new talent, to quickly replace that. And so it definitely feels like an employee's market in a lot of ways right now. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're seeing it and some of the things that T-Square is thinking about, to navigate through it?
Yeah, we're seeing it, and I'm sure all the property management anybody that's trying to buy an appliance or get an appliance repaired. So it's trickling down to all sectors. We had some flooring replaced in our own home, and one of the boxes we had LVP put in, and one of the boxes were damaged. And 8 weeks later, another 2 boxes are being shipped. So we have it half done, which is, I understand it. But one of the things I was thinking about, because I heard one of your other guests talking about this, couple things, is that we did a really great job. And Andrew, you and I had a lot of conversations last year about how we were pivoting and that was the word of the 2020, right? And how did I miss, or how did we, or I'm not an economist, how did we miss pivoting into this labor shortage? It's almost like it happened again, and shame on me the second time, right? That it happened again. How did we not see this? And maybe everyone else did. Maybe I was just too busy trying to run the business and didn't even think. And one of the other things is, I think in 2020, there was no personnel movement in our industry or my company at all. Everyone was just kind of holding firm. And then all of a sudden, came into 2021, end of 2020, and it's like everyone woke up and said, wait, I don't have to do it this way anymore. And I think there's so many things. I saw a news report the other day that people that have children, dual income families that have children, are not going back to work because childcare costs have elevated to the point where even they can't make it work. And generally, that's, they were able to make it work, granted, maybe not as their net revenue in their household, or profits in their household, if you will, weren't that great, but now they can't even make it work because childcare costs are so high. And so it's not just, it's everywhere. And what we've tried to do, again, is because we've had a little practice in pivoting in adversity, we've really tried to go a little bit more of what can we who can we hire maybe on a global scale to do what in my company we call the nickel job. So we don't like the dollar person doing the nickel job, is the old saying, right? So how can we make the employment experience and the work experience for the talent that we have more enjoyable, richer, and we're not vacillate, we're not here as a playground, but we're here to challenge people and we're here to give them their livelihoods. But at the same time, we don't want to overstress them. So how can we do things differently? Where can we invest in efficiencies? Whether it be one of the things one of your guests talked about was the pods they do, and we actually created a pod last year. Our portfolio, our residential portfolio, was to the point where we had enough multifamily investor clients with enough units so that we split the portfolio. All the single family homeowners went to one portfolio and the others, the investors, and they're different mindsets. So they need different things. And then we created that. So we try to relieve a little stress that way in the organization. But I don't know how long this labor shortage is going to go on. And I know it's a place where as a company owner, we're having to redistribute revenue into that area and hopefully create an environment within our company that makes people want to stay. And it's not just about the money. So, it's other things, but there's definitely a labor shortage.
Let's talk about that culture in just a second, because I think you've got some great things to share on that our audience will want to hear. I just want to make a note for anyone listening that the episodes that Kellie just referenced, you can find, I won't know the episode numbers, but Phil Vera is who you're going to be looking for. So if you just search VERA, wherever you're searching podcasts and you find the Triple Win, you can find that where he talks about the pod system. And I think it's really cool, Kellie, how you talked about in your organization, there's a single family pod and a multifamily pod, and that's how it lines up and gets organized, which makes a lot of sense. The other one that you referenced was Peter Lohman. And if you go to peterlohman.com, you'll find a great 10,000 word, that's an exaggeration, it's probably 3,000 or 4,000 words, but a very long article about security deposit alternatives, as well as, in his episode, we talk about this topic too. And one of the solutions I know he's looking at is looking at global talent and saying, where can the $10 an hour, go further, for somebody than it can in Washington potentially, and offer a different lifestyle and different opportunity for them that is also a match for the talent we need for the nickel job, as you defined it, right? Somebody that can really do a great job with that.
And we've been using global talent for several years. One of our long-term VAs is out of Cebu, Philippines. Katrina has been with us almost 4 years. So it's not something new. What we're looking at is and she's developed into a great team member, a really high-level contributing team member, but it's finding that high-level contributing team member at the start and trying to find that right person that, and I don't think the industry is quite to the point where we cannot have boots on the ground. I think we still need the faces in the properties, the boots in the properties. And we need to be looking at when the flood happens. We need to go out there and do it. We can't just have our vendors do it all the time. So, yeah. That's
right. There's certain things you just can't smell all the way from the Philippines that
right. That is true.
might tell you something needs attention.
We had an assistant property manager. Her husband had an opportunity to move to Boise, Idaho, which they've wanted to do for years. And so she works remotely and is a great member of our team as well. But she can't do the move outs at the peak time of the month, right? When we need those move outs done. So it's just different ways. How do we manage all that? And that's one of the things on this labor shortage. I wish I would have seen it coming. Long-term foresight's not my strong suit. That's why I am married and working with my husband. That's his thing. And neither of us really saw it coming. It was, just took us all by surprise. And then one more thing, we get to practice our pivoting on.
That's right. Hey, didn't we already prove our adaptability in 2020? We got to keep doing this again. But
that's what I thought.
I think your words will land on a lot of soft ears, Kelly, because I don't think there were a lot of people who anticipated to the degree that they'd be experiencing the challenges that they are today with talent. And it is always easier in hindsight to say things like, well, the shift to remote work opened up a lot of possibilities, and just a lot of people are thinking about their relationship with their work and what they want from their work experience. And, there's a lot of people trying to hire people, and so they've got options. The stimulus plays into it. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but
and you
it's
said
definitely happening.
their work experience it's more their life experience. It's not work-life balance anymore. It's work-life integration. Didn't we talk about that at PMLX? It's work-life integration. And, being able to sit at your desk and work and go put your laundry in the wash, and then sit at your desk and go stick it in the dryer and feed your dog, or, take your dog for a quick walk. It's all that integration. And that's what I think a lot of people are looking for, and we need to adapt a little better. So
I want to ask you about this, because I know at T-Square, you all are passionate and have taken active steps on saying, we want the work environment here. We want the experience right here, not to be just a place that you show up to receive a paycheck, right?
That's right.
But there's more offered than that. There's more to keep someone motivated than that. There's more to strive for than that. And could you talk a little bit about what you all do to maximize culture as you define it, and create a great, well-rounded opportunity for people to grow and enjoy their experience working at T-Square?
Yeah. So one of the things that we discovered, that even though we were working all in the same location, we are much closer now as a team. And part of that is because we can click on, we use Microsoft Teams. I think you guys use Slack. You can have all these great conversations just on the fly without really interrupting people. And that has really developed empathy with our teammates and with those folks we work with. And that's been really one of the greatest things. A couple other things that we've done just through the years is we really advocate for someone's education. And so we do offer an education allowance every year to every employee. And it doesn't always necessarily have to be tied to exactly what they are doing in their role in the company. So for example, if somebody wanted to say, hey, I really want to learn how to make, no pun intended, pivot tables on Excel. Can I go take this Excel class? And yes, we say yes, if you think that's going to advance you. Now, if someone said, I want to go take a veterinarian class, we'd probably not let that happen. But we really like to encourage people to pursue their dreams while they're here at T-Square. But like we were talking about the labor shortage, and I think it was, I've listened to both of those podcasts. I can't remember which one it was, that we kind of have to think that we're not the old time companies that everybody's going to get a 25-year pin anymore, that it's going to be more along the lines of maybe they'll be here 2 or 3 years. And then how can we help them advance their careers going forward so that when they leave T-Square, they've had a great experience, they've felt supported, they've enjoyed their time here. One of the things we like to do is a fun committee. We have a few people on the team that do the fun committee, and we try to do we did go-kart racing before the pandemic. We had some axe throwing set up that didn't pan out. Just different things that we like to do with our team to create a sense of team and fun, but yet at the same time with work. So it's not all about the money and the compensate and the dollars and the salary. There's so much more to the package, and just trying to give people opportunities to advance themselves, knowing that they're not necessarily going to do it here, although we hope they do.
I love what you said there. And I think a lot of teams have been challenged in the last year and a half to say, how do we create a strong sense of belonging? How do we strengthen the bonds between team members? how do we help them feel more connected to their purpose and their motivation, but also each other? And I love some of the examples that you just gave that are really practical to people, which, there's versions of that could be done in person. I can't imagine a digital axe throwing.
But we did, Alex Abernathy, Scott Abernathy, the current president, his son has a really cool trivia night that can be done on Zoom that we did a couple times. We did scavenger hunts, so you could have your whole family play in the scavenger hunt via Zoom. And so we did a lot of fun things, that we're doing fantasy football. We're starting our draft is tonight. So we're getting fantasy football started. And, there's a lot of things you can do. And it's like you said, it's creating a connection when people are feeling less connected, I think is really important to have that. And if my company and our people, the people that work here can provide that for someone else, then that makes them feel good. And then it's just an upward reciprocation. So, yeah.
I want to also just recognize one more example, which I don't mean as a self-serving one at all. Truly all the credit to you, which is, you were one of a handful of companies that brought, I think, your entire team or a significant portion of the team. Maybe somebody had to, make sure things weren't burning down. But a significant number of people from your team, you brought into an education experience, in PMLX, and I'm sure there are other opportunities that you do as well, whether it's specific to a skill like getting the Excel pivot tables done or something else. Yeah. But, I think there's just a lot of power in having a shared educational experience, and there's shared language that everyone gets. It's at the same time versus even like a book a month. People are reading the books at different places. They're in different, there can be challenges with that. Whereas an event is this focusing event that you can come out of. Has that been successful for you, whether it was PMLX or other events you've done with teams in the past? Has that worked for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely has. We are a team, mostly women, and we've done a women in leadership event, an all-day program. This was a few years ago prior to the pandemic, and we all went, we traveled up to, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to the event, attended it, participated, had lunch together. And those are the kind of things that really do. And that's one of the things we missed out on, everyone missed during the pandemic. And even now, as coronavirus continues its journey through our lifestyles, it's something we all miss. And just getting those connections is definitely a great way to do it. And we do, right now, we have our HOA team meets weekly on Tuesday mornings, and they go over some training stuff. The difference between HOA is they're all portfolios, so they're all doing the same thing side by side. So it's easy training, whereas on the residential side, we're kind of all a spoke in a wheel, right? We're all working on the same property, but doing different things, right? So the HOA team meets weekly, and then the residential team, we do a Tuesday, Friday huddle. So just the Tuesdays are ask a question. Today, the question was, what is the weirdest food combination that you absolutely love? And then on Fridays, we do training, and they're just a little half hour, 20 minutes, half hour, kind of thing. And we try to separate it, but make it valuable. So that's one of the things I've learned over the years is don't have a meeting just to not have just to have a meeting. Got to make it valuable.
Love that. Love that. Thanks for sharing that, Kelly. Let's end on this note. We promised people at the beginning, so we can't leave them hanging at the end. But you said something just before we hit record about how you see property management as a service industry, but that actually T-Square is talking more about providing a blank. How do you answer that question?
I think we provide a lifestyle for people. We provide a lifestyle for investors that, when we get down to it, it's time or money. And do you want more time to have the life that you want by spending a little more money? Or do you want to spend the money and then you manage the property? And, we've had a lot of different states and municipalities and counties and so on, a lot of challenges in the landlord tenant law, and that legislation has really caused a lot of strife for landlords. It's been really difficult to navigate, and we provide the expertise so that someone that is an investor will feel safe and be able to sleep at night knowing that we are the experts navigating that legislation. So I think, we try to look at it as we provide a lifestyle for someone, and not a service necessarily. I know a lot of people talk about it as tactical and task oriented, which it is, but there's a lot of conversations we have that help tenants with their lifestyle. Some of the services we provide make it easier for tenants to live their lives. And I think we just look at it as we're providing a lifestyle.
Love that. There's a lot of people talking about how going from thinking about delivering a service to delivering an experience. And I love what you said about talking about, hey, a lot of people drop their shoulders and they feel discouraged and defeated with all the changing legislation. But I love how you are casting your sail, into that wind and saying, this is actually a reason to work with us, because are you going to keep up with it? Just to keep up with managing your 1 or 2 homes or your fourplex. Whereas we got to do this because we got to stay on top of it for all of these homes that we manage.
Right. And my team's done a really good job on both the HOA side. There's been a lot of legislation changes on the HOA side and the residential side. So
I just can imagine these investors seeing this task list, like the length of a CVS receipt, and and saying, do I really want to do all that? Or do I want Kelly and the T-Squared team that's been doing this for 26 years to do that for me? I love how you're presenting that. Well,
and like I said before we hit record too, we're not always perfect. We miss the mark just like lots of people do, but it's about making sure that you communicate openly and transparently. And, and if you look at it, if we look at it that way to say, hey, I'm here to make your life easier, then I think it's a good match.
That's a great note to end on. Kellie Tollifson, everybody. Kellie, thank you again for being so generous with your time, your insights, your wisdom. We really appreciate you and how you show up to all the live events that we do. People listening to this, if they attend a live event, you may end up in a small breakout room, a little digital roundtable with Kellie at some point, which would be a real gift. I've really enjoyed getting to know you this past year and a half. That's one of my greatest gifts I'm counting from 2020. And really glad we got to do this before 2021 was over.
Yeah, well, thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's always fun to talk.
That's all for this episode of The Triple Win. Thanks go out to Carol Housel and Jeff Tucker for everything they do to put these episodes together. And we want to remind everyone that you can find more resources, upcoming events, a link to our private Facebook group where the conversation continues in between these episodes with other professional property managers. All of that you can find at rbp.secondnature.com. Again, that's rbp.secondnature.com. And until next time, keep transforming what it means to be in professional property management by finding and applying your next triple win. We want it to be true that every time we see you, we see a better version of you and your business. With that, cheers.